Hey everyone, welcome to the American Brown Podcast, the show where we dive deep into real conversations about civil rights, politics, healthcare, holistic health, corporate corruption, spirituality, and that balance we must find in today's world. I'm your host, Ryan Brown. Today we're going to talk a little bit about why I'm choosing to walk away from our traditional two-party system here in America and why I'm going independent. So let's talk about it, guys. So, growing up, I wasn't really into politics. It wasn't something that really just grabbed my attention. I played sports. I had a lot of friends. I was really active. And where I came from, we really didn't see a lot of these issues that you see on TV that they see in bigger cities. We didn't really, see the civil rights stuff, or we didn't see a lot of discrimination. I mean, everybody, it's a military town, so everybody really kind of got along. So it wasn't, we always felt protected and safe. So it wasn't something that I really felt that, needed my attention, I guess you could say. Sure, like most people, I was aware of the bigger events growing up. We had Desert Storm. They always talked about, JFK and Nixon, and we had, the Iraqi War. A lot of things were starting to unfold. They started talking about oil and gas really big, when I was young. But it wasn't really until that 9 double hockey stick situation where I truly began to understand the power of the government and the forces at play behind the scenes that really shape our lives every day. So whether it be, 3-letter agencies, whether it be those, big time CEOs, whether it be the lobbyists or, these different, pharmaceutical healthcare companies that really don't care or give a damn about us. It was something I'd never been taught before. When that happened, though, I really started to see things from a different perspective. And I was only in 11th grade. So what was really, scary about it was, like I said earlier, we're in a military town. So, people are freaking out saying, hey, they're saying that, Tinker Air Force Base is going to get hit next and we need to, be on guard. And I was just frightened because this is a powerhouse of an Air Force base. You would never think that this place would be under the thought of being attacked. And for them to say that, it really shook my whole reality of what this world is and what everything is. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it just made me go through a huge, transition and I became, Mr. America from there. But, it really helped me understand and see some things that started to unravel, some of the paths that I would go down later in life. But ultimately, it really gave me an understanding of the role of these unofficial players, the ones that are pulling the strings behind the curtain, so to say. So when I started to examine my place in the political landscape, I was drawn to the Democratic Party, of course, being a young black man. You hear about civil rights and Martin Luther King and Jesse Jackson and all these great Democrats that fought for civil rights, Rosa Parks, on down the line. And it just seemed to be the party that fought for equality, while Republicans, I was always told that they were the ones who cared mostly about money. They didn't care about if you were white. They didn't care if you were black. All they really cared about is how much money they're going to make off you and, how they can do business with you in order to, set up their families. That was my whole mindset and my whole understanding of Republicans. Not saying that I thought they were bad or I was against capitalism or I was a socialist or anything like that. That's just what we understood it as, especially, being limited to the media and all the different, avenues to get information that we have now. It was literally just a pipeline of this is what it is. This is what they say. And so this is how you perceive it. It wasn't until later on where I really started understanding, how both parties were really responsible and had, really done a lot of things to set the black community back 50, 60, 100 years. So growing up, I grew up in a middle class household, lower middle class. It was me, my mom, and my sister. Cousin and aunt would come live with us every so often. But for the most part, we were kind of smack dab in the middle, meaning we really didn't have anything. So we had just enough to survive, but not enough to get any help. So like I said, I saw things on both sides of the spectrum. I had friends who didn't really have a lot of money who qualified for all the benefits because of, whether it be, disability or just them not being able to work. And then I had friends who had a lot of money and they were going on vacation and their parents worked hard and they had good jobs and they did whatever they could to take care of their families. Either way, those families were very empathetic to me and they, gave me the opportunity to do things when we were lacking on money or, I couldn't afford to go do something. So I didn't have a political view anyway because that wasn't something that divided families. It was something where it wasn't really even talked about until later on as I got older. older. So as I got older, I started to learn a lot more about history and the foundation of this country. And I began to question the narrative of, are Democrats really the right way to go? I saw the effects of these policies that despite, them having quote unquote good intentions, they did little to uplift the black community. Things like Jim Crow laws, redlining, segregation, they didn't come straight from the right wing alone. Both parties had their hands in the cookie jar when it came to the suffering of black America. So I'm not going to talk about, Jim Crow and civil rights and segregation or any of that stuff in this episode. I mean, we'll touch on it, but for the most part, that's just my perspective of what I started to see and why I wanted to open my eyes up, because I knew that, it wasn't suffering coming from just one side, that some of these wounds, a majority of these wounds have been inflicted by Democrats that I respected and thought had my best interest at heart. Not only my best interest, but the interest of the black community at their heart. So as I graduated college, I spent more time around people who were successful. Now, I'm not talking about like wealthy successful. Yeah, some of these people had money, but for the most part, people who just, had good jobs, they were hardworking, they wanted, the government to be out of their business. They loved God, they, wanted to keep their guns to protect their families, just really conservative ideas. It wasn't too far right where, they didn't like, Hispanics, or they didn't like, blacks, or they thought that, they had this hatred towards gays or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was literally the idea of a smaller government, self-sufficiency, entrepreneurship, and the idea that if you work hard, you can make it. But as of late, I have seen a huge rise in Christian and white nationalism within this conservative or Republican Party. And it's really made me rethink things. Some of these people are not conservative. Some of these people are far right wing who do not care about anything. They don't accept their money and their family and their faith. And it's dangerous. It is really dangerous, because a lot of the things that they are trying to implement on us are things that have enslaved us in the past. So 2016, I really didn't know a lot about Trump. I'd seen him on The Apprentice. I'd heard, about his business deals. I figured he'd be good for the economy and from a business aspect to get us out of that debt, or at least lower the debt. And I think he far surpassed what people thought he was going to do, regardless of what you think about him, whether he's brass, whether, you like the things that he says or some of the things that he's been accused of. For the most part, you got to say we had money in our pockets and our borders were locked down whenever he was in office. And I think that's a major win for the American people. He created opportunity zones for jobs and closing that wealth gap, and for, young entrepreneurs to go in and open and have the opportunity to open their own business. He, implemented the First Step Act, which, got people out of jail for nonviolent offenses, and, improved our rehab programs to allow for more compassionate sentencing. And he also gave HBCUs a ton of loan money with minimal interest and extended payoff periods. So you can't say that he didn't do anything for black people, a lot more than any other president that's been in that office has. Now, Trump doesn't bother me. I like Trump a lot. He did great his first term, and I think he's going to do great, this time around. I like Tulsi. I like RFK. Even Vance doesn't bother me. I like Vivek, and I think it's, awesome that, Elon has come in and he's, really wanted to help, get things straight as far as how we're spending money. My biggest issue is the people that are outside of that circle. I think they are not conservative. I think they are far right wing, whether it be Christian nationalists or white nationalists. And you're really starting to see that, especially in some of the conversations that they're having, not only through the media, but even, the different, podcasters and, people in the media that support them. They are really getting this pro-white, anti-DEI, they're being discriminated against mentality that is really kind of hard to watch, and really kind of makes me keep my eyes open in to see where our next step has to be and what we have to do as a Black community. What really opened my eyes up was this whole Matt Gaetz situation. And man, I'll tell you what, this has gone left field for him, and yeah, he's innocent as far as, he wasn't convicted, but the things that they're talking about him doing are illegal. He paid for sex. That's illegal. You know what I mean? He's doing drugs that are probably not weed. That's illegal. So the things that he's doing, those aren't, moral standards that a politician that I would like to represent me. However, was first in line to be our attorney general, the number one cop in the United States. How scary is that? And not only that, now the whole deal is they're not even looking at, okay, well, the things that he was doing were illegal. And I didn't even mention he had sex with a 17-year-old, whether she said she was 17 or not. The things that he is doing are not only immoral, but they're illegal. And for people to turn a blind eye and say, well, he was never convicted, that really draws red flags for him. Not only are they turning a blind eye to things that are immoral and illegal, but the other day I'm listening to Charlie Kirk and they're really going in on this DEI and this woke, stuff. And I hear him say, and it's not a direct quote, but pretty much that if I see a Black pilot, I'm kind of like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, I hope everything's all right, and because they think that these people are being hired, that every Black person that's in a position of, authority is a DEI hire. That's racist, and these things are kind of disheartening because, as a Black conservative, you kind of like these people and you listen to what they have to say, and they're smart individuals. So for them to say things like this or to commit acts that are as immoral as, some of them have done, is really kind of disheartening. It makes you really look at the party a different way, and if they're turning a blind eye to these things and they're saying things, about Blacks and, different races because they're upset, it really shows how they feel because your true colors come out when you're mad. And there have definitely been plenty more that have been swept under the rug, but like I said, we'll talk about those in later episodes. But the rise of the white Christian nationalists has been very alarming, and some of the rhetoric I've seen, as far as the racist and dismissive, hostile attitudes towards Black Americans, it just makes it really clear that there are some factions within this conservative party that don't see us as equals. And this is something that, I've seen my whole life. It's not like an aha moment or something that I'm just now coming to realization. It's nothing like that. I've always been the one that I can just go and I'll do something else. I'll start my own business or whatever the case may be. Not a big deal at all, and I think that's, as Black Americans, that's what we really need to start focusing on, is how are we going to build our own wealth and how are we going to build our status, and not any type of racist, we can't interact with whites or Mexicans or, Asians, anything like that. None of that. But we do have to start looking out for ourselves, and we do have to start understanding how do we keep our money circulating within our communities, and how do we, build things that are going to be of value and are going to create generational wealth, not just individually, but how do we build, companies that have longevity, whether it be in, economics or technology or, some type of skill work that we used to do. You go into the Black neighborhoods and, when I was growing up and, there's Black kids mowing the yard, there were, Black, grocery stores, there were, a lot of Black things that were going on that don't happen anymore because we've just slowly either been pushed out or just kind of given up hope and, fall into the it is what it is syndrome. So now what we have is, a lot of white Americans who are facing these economic hardships and they're using DEI as a scapegoat. They're not saying, oh, well, these, wealthy CEOs that just so happen to be white don't want to pay us or they don't want to hire us. It's because, DEI and Blacks are getting the jobs and illegal immigrants are getting the jobs. But what they fail to acknowledge is the rise of educated Black Americans who prioritize family, embrace fatherhood, who invest in trade skills, who understand wealth and are breaking away from those institutional shackles that have historically oppressed us. The progress isn't because of DEI. It's because we're putting in the work. work. Now, are there some people who are getting promoted because of DEI? Yes. Are they underqualified? Yes, but that is not a majority of the people who are getting these positions. Black people are doing what we have to do in order to get ahead in life. And I'm not saying that DEI is good. I actually don't agree with it. I just don't think that white people should say that, oh, well, it's DEI is the reason why, blacks or in other races are getting jobs and we're not, and it's just a spoiled brat mentality. It's like, oh, well, we've been getting something and now other people are, increasing their skills and to get better and be more, competitive for these jobs. And now it's, well, because of DEI, well, because of affirmative action, all these different things that, don't even really matter, because as a black person, like, you have to do everything at the top of your craft in order to even be looked at. So it's not DEI. Maybe in like, blue cities, like, in, blue states or cities like, California or, Chicago or, Detroit, places in Florida, maybe there, but you're not seeing that around the United States. Why are most black people fucking unemployed? If DEI was a fucking thing, every black person would pretty much have a job. So I don't know. That's just from my perspective. If this is such a big problem, then how come there's still such a big wage gap? And how come there are so many blacks that are still unemployed and can't find jobs and are applying for jobs, but their phones aren't ringing? Well-educated black people who are going through this situation. So it's not DEI. It's not affirmative action. It's not that, blacks are getting promoted because of their color. It's because we're getting better at things, or nobody's really hiring, or CEOs just don't want to pay you to work for them. They want to keep all the money and they want you to work as a slave for them. My biggest thing with this party and what I've seen the past, 8 years has been, everything revolving around being a quote unquote true Christian. They place the blame on DEI initiatives and black communities for the struggle of white men in the job market. They don't acknowledge historical black achievements that, happened and that, were stolen and patented and taken away from these black inventors and scientists and engineers. They're erasing, tragedies and, terrible acts of terror upon these black communities that caused them to be dismantled. Look at Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, that's the main one. And, we have a state superintendent who is trying to literally erase that from the books. He is trying to fire teachers for talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma, because they don't want to be held accountable and they don't want to be responsible for it. It's not right. CEOs dismiss employees who push for remote work. And so, that's my biggest thing with, the Doge thing is like, yeah, man, like, cut the spending. But you're talking about, hey, well, we want people who want to work 80 hours a week. And ain't no one trying to do that, because y'all wasn't doing anything to help us put money in our pocket while you guys are just padding up and, you guys have billions and millions of dollars while we're here working for you and, pushing your business and making sure you're successful and, making that our whole identity, and nobody's getting anything in return. So whether it's black, whether it's white, like whether it's Mexican, whether it's Asian, the only motherfuckers that is getting something is if you're illegal, and you're coming over here, which that's about to stop. So, then claiming lack of loyalty, like, nobody wants to push your brand when you're not paying them. Nobody's coming to work for culture. We come to work for money. If you ain't trying to pay, we ain't going to be there. And if you have the opportunity to work from your house and still get the same job done, then by all means, you need to let us do that. Like, you think people are being productive when they're in the office? Like, there is way less productivity in any office, environment that I've been in, unless somebody is over your shoulder, making you sit in that cubicle and do whatever your responsibility is for that day. Right. You guys overlook, systemic issues that cause, in company culture. Look at this Mangione deal, right? You've got a class of millionaires calling a class of people who are in poverty and middle class pretty much scolding us because they're not feeling sympathetic because a guy was murked because of his acts as a CEO with his healthcare company. Like, the classism is rampant. And so all the things that you guys were harping on to get the black vote, now you're starting to say, well, black people are the problem. I don't get it. This is a prime example example of nationalism and classism. Now, let me be open, honest, and transparent. I have many white friends. They have supported me in ways I can never repay. The love of my life is she's a white woman, and together we have 2 mixed children, and I've got 3 other boys that are mixed. My grandfather was half Scandinavian. Trust me, I have no hatred for white people, okay? I've been called Uncle Tom. I've had my black card pulled, all kinds of things by blacks because they thought that I was on the certain side of the fence that I really wasn't. They just didn't take the time to ask me or understand where I'm coming from, right? But there's a subset who really believe their wealth and status make them superior to black America. And at the end of the day, it's time to speak up. It's time for us to get our stuff together, guys. It's time for us to build our community. And like I said, I'm not saying segregate from whites and don't talk to them and be on some, elite blackism and Pan-Africanism and all that. Like, that's not even what we're talking about here. We need to start doing business with each other. We need to keep that money circulating in our community so that way it doesn't leave. It circulates 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before it leaves out. We need to start building businesses, and we need to start buying up the land so it doesn't get bought through gentrification and they start pushing us out to other places, and those are the things that we need to do. We need to understand money. We need to create a wealth system. We need to create a bank, right? It doesn't have to be all at once. So through our personal experiences, videos, podcasts, one truth has become evident, and it's regardless of our political affiliation. Black Americans, we must unite. There's no other option because to some, we are only valued if we're entertainers, athletes, or part of the elite 1%, whether that's, money wise or in your position or your craft of what you do. And this is why I'm moving to the independent party, guys. I'm done with the diverse games played by both sides, and it's time to stand with what aligns with not only my values, but the values of the black community. We need free healthcare. We need corporate corruption gone. We need free education. We need to be able to take care of our people. We need to get rid of homelessness. There's a lot of things socially that we need to take care of, but also capitally we need to take care of as well. And I think that there's a middle ground between both. We need to get rid of systemic racism on all aspects of it. There should be no black racism. There should be no white racism. There should be no Mexican, Asian, none of that. We're all going to have our stereotypes and we're all going to have our bias, right? But if it's coming down to where we are not putting people in certain positions, or we are, casting a blame on certain people because of stereotypes and things that we don't know, who have we become as the American people? Who are we as Americans? So once again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the American Brown podcast. My name is Ryan Brown, just reminding you guys to keep your path clear with an open mind, to stand for unity, truth, and freedom without the influence of blind allegiance. Until next time.